I object, Your Honor. This is not a trial. It is a travesty. The voice, like cracked ice over a deep lake, shattered the monotonous hum of the courtroom. Every head, from the weary public defender to the jaded bailiff, snapped towards the back of the room. The speaker was an elderly woman, standing ramrod straight in the aisle. She was dressed not for a grimy municipal courthouse, but for a boardroom or a gala. In a severe, exquisitely tailored black suit, her silver hair coiled into a ruthless chignon. She held a simple leather briefcase, but her presence was weapon enough. Judge Henderson, a man who prided himself on running a tight ship, peered over his spectacles, his annoyance palpable. "Madam, this is a closed hearing. Who are you? And on what grounds do you interrupt these proceedings?" The woman's eyes, a piercing, almost unnerving shade of sapphire blue, swept past the judge and landed on the defendant, a young woman, no older than 22, with haunted eyes and a posture of defeated resignation. The girl, Lily, flinched under the intensity of that gaze. "My name," the woman said, her voice carrying without needing to rise, "is Eleanor Vance, and the grounds are that the young woman you are about to convict is my granddaughter." A collective gasp rippled through the sparse audience. The prosecutor dropped his pen. Lily's court-appointed lawyer, a young man named Ben Carter, whose suit was as rumpled as his spirit, looked as if he'd been struck by lightning, but no one was more stunned than Lily herself. She stared at the imposing figure, her mind a whirring blank. A grandmother? She'd been told her family was dead, lost in the fire that had orphaned her as a child. Eleanor Vance began her slow, deliberate walk down the aisle, each click of her heels on the linoleum floor echoing like a verdict. "And I am here to prove that not only is she innocent of this pathetic charge of petty theft, but that this entire case has been engineered to keep her from me." The judge, recovering slightly, banged his gavel. "Miss Vance, this is highly irregular. You are not on the docket. You have no standing here." Eleanor reached the defense table and placed her briefcase upon it with a soft, final thud. She turned those brilliant blue eyes on the judge, and for the first time, he saw the steel behind them. He saw a power he recognized, a power that went beyond wealth and into the realm of genuine, formidable influence. "Your Honor," she said, a chilling smile touching her lips, "give me 1 hour. I have evidence that will not only exonerate my granddaughter, but will expose a conspiracy that reaches into the highest echelons of this city. If I fail, you can hold me in contempt. But if you proceed without hearing me, you will be complicit in a grave injustice." The courtroom was utterly silent. The air crackled with possibility. Lily looked from the formidable stranger claiming to be her family to the judge's uncertain face. For the first time in a long, hard life, a flicker of something dangerous and fragile ignited within her. Hope. 30 years earlier, Eleanor Vance was not a woman who begged. She commanded. The Vance name was synonymous with old money, sharp intellect, and an empire built on private equity that quietly controlled a significant portion of the state's infrastructure. Eleanor had inherited the mantle from her father and had expanded the empire with a ruthlessness that both terrified and impressed her peers. Her home, the Eyrie, was a cliffside modernist fortress of glass and steel, a testament to her power and her isolation. But on the day her world ended, none of that mattered. It was her daughter Isabella's 30th birthday. Isabella was the opposite of Eleanor Soft, where her mother was hard, an artist who dreamed in colors, not spreadsheets. Against Eleanor's vehement objections, Isabella had married a kind but unambitious musician, David. They lived in a cheerful, chaotic little house in the city, a world away from the Eyrie. The only thing Eleanor and Isabella agreed on was their love for Isabella's 4-year-old daughter, Lily. Lily was the light of Eleanor's life. The little girl, with her mother's gentle spirit and her grandmother's startling blue eyes, could melt the ice around Eleanor's heart with a single smile. On that fateful day, the family was having a small party at the city zoo. Eleanor, who despised crowds and chaos, had reluctantly agreed to attend for an hour. The memory was a scar tissue over Eleanor's soul. The humid air, the shrieks of children, the smell of popcorn and animals. She had been talking on her brick-sized cell phone, finalizing a hostile takeover of a shipping company. while Isabella and David chased a giggling Lily through the primate exhibit. Eleanor had hung up, annoyed, and turned to find her family. A moment of confusion. A crowd gathering. Then Isabella's scream, a sound of pure, unadulterated terror that cut through all other noise. Lily was gone. The ensuing hours were a blur of panic. Security was called. The zoo was locked down. Police swarmed the grounds. Eleanor, using every ounce of her influence, had the mayor and the police commissioner on the line within minutes. But it was too late. The official theory was a kidnapping for ransom. The Vances were famously wealthy, after all. But no ransom call ever came. Days turned into weeks, then months, then years. The investigation hit dead end after dead end. The strain shattered Isabella and David's marriage. They divorced, each consumed by a grief that slowly poisoned them. Isabella, her light extinguished, died in a car accident 2 years later, a death Eleanor always believed was a suicide of despair. David faded away, moving to another country, and losing touch completely. Eleanor was left alone in her glass fortress. The empire she had built felt like a hollow, mocking monument. She had controlled everything, markets, politicians, fortunes, but she could not control the random, cruel fate that had stolen her granddaughter. The powerful CEO became a ghost, a reclusive figure spoken of in whispers. She never stopped looking. She hired the best private investigators in the world. She followed every lead, no matter how faint, spending millions. But Lily had vanished without a trace. The blue-eyed little girl became a ghost, and Eleanor Vance became the woman who lived with a ghost. Lily did not remember the zoo. Her earliest memory was of a woman named Carol who had kind eyes but a nervous disposition, and a small, stuffy apartment that always smelled of cabbage. Carol told Lily that her parents had died in a fire, and that she was a distant aunt who had taken her in. It was a lie, but for a child, it became the truth. Life with Carol was not cruel, but it was precarious. They moved often, from one drab rental to another, always cash in hand, always under the radar. Carol worked menial jobs and seemed to live in a state of low-grade fear. She homeschooled Lily erratically, and the girl grew up isolated, with no friends and no sense of a past. The only thing she had from her former life was a first name and a recurring nightmare of monkeys and a woman's scream. When Lily was 14, Carol fell ill with a rapid, aggressive cancer. On her deathbed, clutching Lily's hand, she confessed in ragged breaths, "Your family, not dead, rich, powerful. The grandmother, Eleanor Vance. You were taken. It was a job. I was supposed to, just for a little while. But I got scared. I kept you. I'm so sorry, Lily." The name Eleanor Vance meant nothing to the teenage girl. It was a name from a fairy tale, a cruel one. Before Carol could say more, before she could explain who had hired her or why, she slipped into a coma and died. Lily was alone, a ghost with a name. She was placed in the foster system, a sullen, distrustful girl with no records. She bounced from home to home, never fitting in. She aged out of the system at 18 with a GED and a burning desire for one thing: stability. She found a tiny studio apartment and worked 2 jobs, one as a waitress at a diner, the other as a nighttime cleaner at a corporate office building called the Meridian Tower. It was a hard, anonymous life, but it was hers. She kept her head down. She trusted no one. The name Eleanor Vance was a secret she carried, a mystery too vast and terrifying to confront. How does a homeless cleaner approach a powerful matriarch? What if Carol had been delusional? What if she wasn't wanted? The fear of rejection was greater than the hope of reunion. The office she cleaned belonged to a mid-level investment firm, Croft and Strand. She pushed her vacuum cleaner past the glass-walled offices of men who never saw her, invisible as dust. One of them, a slick, ambitious young broker named Jason Croft, the son of the founder, sometimes worked late. He'd leer at her, make condescending comments, but she always ignored him. She was beneath his notice, and she preferred it that way. Until the night everything went wrong. It was a Friday, payday. Lily had just collected her meager check from the diner. She'd gone to the bank, deposited the check, and taken out $100 in cash for the week's groceries and bus fare. She remembered the distinct feeling of the two $50 bills, crisp and new, as the teller handed them to her. That evening, she reported for her cleaning shift at the Meridian Tower. Her routine was methodical. Empty trash bins, vacuum carpets, wipe down surfaces. Around 9 p.m., she started on the top floor, the executive suite, where Jason Croft's office was located. His door was ajar, the lights off. She pushed her cart inside, and then she saw it. On the floor, beside the expensive leather chair, lay a wallet. A thick, black alligator skin wallet. Hesitating, she picked it up. It felt heavy, full of cards and cash. Her first instinct was to take it to security, but a darker thought, born of a lifetime of scarcity, whispered to her, "Look inside." She did. It was stuffed with $100 bills. $1,000, maybe more. It was more money than she made in a month. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She thought of her threadbare coat, her empty fridge, the constant, grinding anxiety of poverty. Her fingers trembled as she touched the bills. But she couldn't do it. Carol, for all her faults, had taught her not to steal. With a sigh of resignation, she snapped the wallet shut. Just as she did, the office lights blazed on. Well, well, well. What do we have here? Jason Croft stood in the doorway, a smug, predatory smile on his face. Two security guards flanked him. I found it," Lily stammered, holding out the wallet. "I was just about to turn it in." "Of course you were," Jason crooned, stepping forward and plucking the wallet from her hand. He made a show of opening it. "Funny. I could have sworn there was $500 in here. Now there's only $400. Lily's blood ran cold. "What? No! I didn't take anything. I just found it." "Search her," Jason said to the guards. Humiliated and terrified, Lily was patted down. One of the guards found the two $50 bills in her jacket, pocket the money from the diner. "My money," Jason said, pointing at the bills as if they were branded with his name. "I'd just gotten them from the bank. Sequential serial numbers. Check them against the withdrawal records." It was a perfect, flimsy, and devastating frame-up. Lily's protests were drowned out by Jason's smug authority. She was arrested, charged with petty theft, and processed. The public defender, Ben Carter, was kind but overworked. He saw a simple case, a poor girl caught red-handed. He advised her to take a plea deal, probation, and a fine. A criminal record was better than jail time. But Lily refused. She was innocent. She had nothing, but she had her stubborn pride. She would not plead guilty to something she didn't do. It was this stubbornness, this refusal to break, that set her on a collision course with the destiny she had spent a lifetime avoiding. Eleanor Vance's war room was not in the Eyrie. It was a nondescript office suite in the city center, staffed by a small, fiercely loyal team headed by a man named Alistair Finch. Finch was more than a head of security. He was Eleanor's spy master, her chief investigator. For 20 years, his sole mission had been to find Lily. The break came from the most mundane of places, a facial recognition algorithm. Eleanor, leveraging her corporate holdings, had integrated the software into security systems across the city. ATMs, traffic cameras, building lobbies. It was a long shot, comparing a 4-year-old's photo to the faces of adults. But it was all she had. One evening, Finch walked into Eleanor's study, his face uncharacteristically pale. He placed a tablet on her desk. On the screen was a grainy still from a security camera inside the Meridian Tower's lobby. It showed a young woman, head down, being escorted by security guards. "The algorithm flagged it," Finch said, his voice tight. "A 92% probability match. The age is right. The eyes. Eleanor, look at her eyes." Eleanor picked up the tablet. Her hands, which could sign billion-dollar deals without a tremor, shook violently. The image was poor, but the eyes, they were her own eyes. They were Isabella's eyes. It was the ghost, made flesh. "Who is she? Where is she?" Eleanor's voice was a rasp. "Her name is Lily Miller. She was arrested last night. She's being arraigned this morning in municipal court on a charge of petty theft." The words were absurd. Petty theft. Her granddaughter? A thief? Eleanor felt a surge of fury, not at the girl, but at the universe. What kind of life had she been forced to live? "Get the car," she commanded, "and get me everything on this case. Everything. I want to know who set this up and why." As her limousine sped towards the courthouse, Finch briefed her from the front seat. "The complainant is Jason Croft, of Croft and Strand. The firm is a minor player. His father, Robert Croft, has a history." "What history?" Eleanor's gaze was fixed on the passing city. "In the late 82nds, he was a junior analyst at Vance Holdings. You fired him for embezzlement. You declined to press charges, on the condition he never work in finance again, a mercy he apparently didn't deserve." A cold dread began to crystallize in Eleanor's stomach. A fired employee. A granddaughter lost. A granddaughter found and immediately framed for a crime. It was too neat. It was a message. She arrived at the courthouse as the hearing was beginning. She stood in the back, watching the proceedings with a critic's eye. She saw the defeated slump of the public defender. She saw the arrogant smirk of the prosecutor. And she saw Lily. Her Lily. Not a 4-year-old, but a young woman, hardened by life, yet with a defiant spark in those familiar blue eyes. She was pleading, not guilty. Eleanor's heart clenched. This was not about a stolen $100. This was a trap. Someone had found Lily first. Someone was using her to get to Eleanor, and they had made a catastrophic mistake. They had awakened the matriarch. As the judge was about to set a trial date, Eleanor made her move. She stepped into the light. The judge, after a tense, whispered conference with both lawyers at the bench, granted Eleanor Vance 1 hour. The courtroom was cleared of all but the essential parties. The atmosphere was electric with disbelief and anticipation. Eleanor approached the defense table. She did not look at Lily, who was staring at her as if she were an apparition. Instead, she opened her briefcase and addressed the judge. "Your Honor, the first piece of evidence is a simple bank record." She handed a sheet to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. "This is Lily Miller's transaction history from the day of the alleged theft. It shows a cash withdrawal of $100 from the First National Bank on Elm Street at 4:17 p.m. The serial numbers of the bills she received are recorded by the bank, as per standard procedure for new bills. They match exactly the two $50 bills found in her possession." Ben Carter, Lily's lawyer, looked stunned. "How did you get that?" "I have my resources," Eleanor said coolly. "The point is, Jason Croft's claim that those were his bills, withdrawn sequentially, is a lie. They were Lily's." The prosecutor, a man named Davies, stood up. "This is unorthodox, Your Honor, but it doesn't disprove that she took the money from the wallet. She could have had her own money and still stolen his." "A valid point, Mr. Davies," Eleanor conceded. "Which brings me to my second piece of evidence. She produced a USB drive. This is security footage from the Meridian Tower, specifically from the camera in the hallway outside Mr. Croft's office, from 8:45 p.m. to 9:15 p.m. on the night in question." Jason Croft, who had been observing with growing unease, shot to his feet. "That's impossible. The system it was malfunctioning that night." Eleanor's smile was glacial. "Was it? How convenient." "My technicians, however, found a backup server the building management was unaware of." She handed the drive to the bailiff. "Your Honor, if you would." The judge nodded to the court clerk, who plugged the drive into a monitor. The grainy black and white footage played. It showed Lily pushing her cleaning cart down the hall. She entered Croft's office at 9:05 p.m. Less than 30 seconds later, she emerged, holding the wallet, looking up and down the hall as if searching for someone. Then, Jason Croft and the guards appeared. The entire sequence was clear. "You'll notice," Eleanor said, her voice cutting through the silence, "that at no point did Lily attempt to conceal the wallet. Her actions are consistent with someone who found a lost item. Furthermore, the timeline demolishes the prosecution's fantasy. She had no time to steal money from it. The case was crumbling in real time. Judge Henderson looked from the footage to Jason Croft, whose face was now ashen. "But why?" the judge asked, bewildered. "Mr. Croft, why would you make such an accusation?" Eleanor answered for him. "Because it was never about Lily. It was about me." She turned her sapphire gaze fully onto Jason Croft. Wasn't it, Jason? A message from your father. A warning. You found her before I did. You thought you could control her, use her as a pawn. You thought framing her for a petty crime would be a way to humiliate me, to show me that you could touch what was mine. You never expected her to fight back. You never expected me to walk through that door. Jason Croft was sweating profusely. This is insane. I don't know what she's talking about. Then let's ask your father, Eleanor said. She nodded to Alistair Finch, who had been standing by the courtroom doors. Finch opened them, and two serious-looking men in dark suits escorted an elderly, trembling man into the room. It was Robert Croft. The older Croft looked broken. He couldn't meet Eleanor's eyes. Robert, Eleanor said, her voice soft but deadly. It's been a long time. Tell the judge. Tell him why you took my granddaughter. The final twist, the one that had been hidden for 2 decades, was about to be revealed. The courtroom was a tomb. All eyes were on the shrunken figure of Robert Croft. I didn't mean for it to happen, he whispered, his voice cracking. It was just supposed to be a scare, a way to get back at you for ruining me. Eleanor's face was a mask of stone, but her knuckles were white where she gripped the table. Lily was frozen, listening to the story of her own life being rewritten. After you fired me, Croft continued, I had nothing. My reputation was destroyed. I couldn't get a job. I hated you, Eleanor. I wanted you to feel a fraction of the pain I felt. I hired a woman, Carol, to take the girl at the zoo. The plan was to keep her for a few days, let you sweat, then return her anonymously. A taste of your own medicine. He swallowed hard, tears welling in his eyes. But Carol panicked. She saw the news, the manhunt. She thought she'd be charged with kidnapping, so she ran. She disappeared with the girl. I spent years trying to find her, to set it right, but she was gone. I thought Lily was lost forever. He looked at Lily for the first time, his expression one of profound shame. Then, a few months ago, one of my son's employees saw a new cleaner in the building. Jason showed me her file, the name Lily, and those eyes. I knew. I was terrified. After all these years, the truth was walking back into my life. Eleanor's voice was like a whip. So you decided to finish what you started. You had your son frame her for a crime to discredit her, to make her seem like a troubled delinquent, so if she ever came forward with her story, no one would believe her? Robert Croft hung his head. It was Jason's idea. He said we could control the narrative. We could make her go away quietly. A plea deal, a criminal record. She'd be silenced. We never thought she'd plead not guilty. We never thought you'd find her here. The truth settled over the room, heavy and shocking. It wasn't a random kidnapping. It was a revenge plot that spiraled horribly out of control, a secret held for 18 years, now exposed in a squalid courtroom over a charge of $100. Judge Henderson was the first to break the silence. He looked at Jason Croft with utter contempt. Mr. Croft, you are under arrest for filing a false police report, conspiracy, and perjury. The bailiff moved to handcuff a stunned Jason. Then the judge turned to Robert Croft. And you, sir, for kidnapping and a litany of other charges I don't have the breath to list right now. As the Crofts were taken away, the judge looked at Eleanor and Lily. The case against Lily was dismissed with prejudice. It was over. Outside the courthouse, the sun was blinding. Lily stood on the steps, the city swirling around her, feeling utterly unmoored. The legal nightmare was over, but a personal earthquake had just begun. Eleanor approached her slowly, the formidable matriarch replaced by a hesitant old woman. The blue eyes that had been so fierce in the courtroom were now soft and swimming with tears. Lily, she said, the name a prayer on her lips. I have spent every day of the last 18 years looking for you. Lily looked at this stranger, this powerful force of nature who had exploded into her life and saved her. She saw the echoes of her own face in the woman's features. She saw the grief of a lifetime etched in the lines around her eyes. The wall of distrust she had built around her heart for so long didn't crumble. It dissolved. Grandmother? Lily whispered, the word feeling foreign and right on her tongue. Eleanor Vance, who had not cried in public since she was a child, broke. She opened her arms, and Lily stepped into them. It was not the embrace of a powerful CEO and a former cleaner. It was the embrace of a grandmother and her granddaughter, a circle closed after a long, painful exile. Later, at the Eyrie, sitting in a room with a panoramic view of the city, Lily learned the full story. She saw pictures of her mother, Isabella, and saw her own smile. She learned about her father, David. Eleanor promised to help her find him if he was still alive. "This house, it's so big," Lily said, overwhelmed. "It's been empty for too long," Eleanor replied, taking her hand. "It needs life. Your life." But Lily, forged in hardship, was pragmatic. "What happens now? To the Crofts? They will face justice," Eleanor said, her voice regaining its steel. "But our justice is done. We have each other." The story of the lost Vance heiress, rescued from a courtroom by her billionaire grandmother, became the scandal of the century. But for Eleanor and Lily, the headlines didn't matter. They had a lifetime to catch up on. Lily, with Eleanor's guidance, began the slow process of healing and learning about the legacy she was now a part of. She discovered she had her grandmother's head for business and her mother's creative soul. The twist of fate that had stolen her had been cruel. The twist of fate that returned her, born from a petty crime in a skyscraper, had been miraculous. And the most unexpected twist of all was that the powerful woman who commanded empires and the resilient girl who survived them found, in each other, not just family, but a second chance. The matriarch's shadow had finally found its light.